Yeah, here we go.
Chicka, chicka. Yeah.
Kill Bill and Rev. We don't suck. Narwhals, narwhals. sorry. Hold on, let me do that again. Narwhals singing in the ocean, causing a commotion, cause they're fucking awesome. Remember that song?
Welcome back to the We Don't Suck podcast, episode 76.
Hold on, I have a better intro. I have a better intro.
All right.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay. Everybody clap your ass. All right, I'm open to criticism.
That's good, man.
Thanks. I'm glad that was your criticism, because if you said anything else, I think I'd have to walk away from this.
Yeah. Actually, before we go into today's episode, and I say to go into today's episode as if we have this planned out.
We do.
Yeah, which obviously do.
You're going off the rails. You're
I'm
going off the script.
Off script. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to address something that I know I've already addressed it on Matt's stream. I've addressed it on my own stream. We've addressed it on Twitter, on Instagram. I've addressed it everywhere where I could. I've addressed this issue except for on this podcast because I've been sick for the last 2 weeks or so, and I didn't get to talk about it the last time around. But I'd like to address what's going on right now, what's been going on now for a couple of weeks, and what is worryingly now slowly being less talked about on social media, at least. That is the form of media I am exposed to primarily, so I can only speak on that. I don't know if, it's just as big of a deal as it should be and as it was 1 or 2 weeks ago on TV. So I'm assuming that a lot of people are already aware of our stance, so I'm going to not address it the exact same way I've done it in the past. I would like to talk about objectives and actions, because one thing I've been seeing is that is this confusion sometimes amongst both sides as to what the objectives are, and racists online and offline and the media will have you believe that the rioting is the objective, which it isn't. It isn't. If it becomes a necessary means to an end, then sure, but it's not the end. The way I see it personally, and feel free to jump in at any point if I say anything you disagree with, Bill, but for one, demilitarize the police. It's crazy that the police is able to use weaponry that's made for war, and they're using it on their own soil against peaceful protesters. And I don't need nobody telling me, there's also some non-peaceful protesters. Motherfucker, we've seen the footage. There's enough evidence out there that a lot of peaceful protesters are met with aggression and violence, and not the understanding that everybody needs to be reflecting on right now. Defund the police. A lot of people are, actually, the literal definition is withdrawing funds. So you try to say abolish the police? Motherfucker, nobody's using it in that sense right now. Why are we being pedantic? We understand that defunding the police implies the reallocation of the funds that go to the police, reallocating them to institutions that could directly help address a lot of the issues that have led to this. Issues of economic disparity, mental health, education, and so on and so forth. Way too much money is going towards the police, and it hasn't been paying off for a very, very long time. We need to also reset the whole system for how we work with the police and how the police works for us. They need to be reminded that they work for us and not the other way around. They answer to the people that they serve. We cannot allow the same ways that people have been hiring the police to remain in place. We cannot allow the police force to hire people with mental issues such as PTSD.
I 100% agree.
It's critical for us to understand these people that we hire to protect us have access to guns. They have access to authority. And if we seen with the, was it like 30, 40 years ago, the Stanford experiment where a bunch of people were called in, half of them were made prison guards, the others were made prisoners, and they were just kind of let them roam. We saw that people will abuse power. It's just a fact of life. So we need to reset how we look at that, how we hold them accountable. If a cleaner makes a mistake, they maybe forget to wipe behind the microwave in the kitchen. If a police officer makes a mistake, they take someone's father away. They take someone's son away. They take someone's family away. They take someone's future away. And so these people must be held way more accountable than a lot of these other false comparisons that people are drawing. And this should be a bipartisan concern. Not I'm Republican, so I disagree, or I'm a Democrat, and that's why I believe this. This is a human concern. Fuck your two-party system.
I think people get so wrapped up in their own identity in their political choices that they don't look at things from a perspective of like a human caring about another human.
Exactly.
And I think, okay, don't get me wrong. Like I'm one of those people that I feel like I'm empathetic to people. Like when I feel like I see where people are coming from, and I understand people who are upset about rioting, you know? But my problem is with that. It's like, okay, y'all are all upset about business owners losing money, maybe even small business owners that are caught in the crossfire, black business owners that are caught in the crossfire. And that's, I 100% understand. But where is that energy when people, like, why are we all so concerned about, oh, well, this person's innocent and such, but like, y'all didn't give a fuck about George Floyd. Y'all didn't give a fuck about like all these other cases. Like, why are you so riled up about this one thing, but you're not riled up about, and they're like, okay, well, how about like, let's look at the context behind this person. Was this person a criminal? Blah, 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 blah. But you're not saying that about the business owners.
Yeah.
No one's coming at it with that energy. And it makes me, I know that people knee jerk react to things. And I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, so is this what y'all really care about? Or is it just your homies care about this and you want to like fit in with your friends? And like, I think it goes way deeper, but I just think my thing is, just like you said, it's a bipartisan issue, 100%. Like, just because it's a black person dying doesn't mean that Democrats should only care about it.
Yep.
Y'all act like black Republicans don't exist. Like, like this could be your friend. This could be you. You know what I'm saying? This, like, it's, I don't know. I think also it's just like, I got into, I think this is kind of an interesting little segue. I don't want to make this about me. But I do want to talk about something that happened, and something that you are obviously referring to. So I've been I'm bad at arguing, right? I don't like arguing. I don't like conflict. Like, it's something that I've always been bad at. I avoid doing it, especially with like people I don't know, I guess. And recently, like, I posted something about, or I retweeted something that Square said about defunding the police. And then I got into an argument with someone who was like a fan of my music.
That's right. I wasn't actually referring to that, but that is one example exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that you saw it, but
yeah, I saw that.
But they were arguing with me about defunding the police, which, I mean, like, I'm not a fucking economics guy. Like, I don't know the fucking I don't know where to put money and stuff like that, but I do know that like police officers probably shouldn't have fucking tanks and shit like that. And like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. Right. Especially in the world that we are living in right now. And I think that the militarization and making the police into a scary force, you know, cuts that divide that already exists and makes that canyon even deeper, you know? And my thing is I was just trying to talk about, I don't know about the idea, the implications of abolishing the police, but I do think that we should try to figure out some kind of way to, and that's why I was saying defund the police, try to find some kind of way to fix these issues and hold people accountable. Not even on just an individual basis, but it's like clearly this is a thing that happens with this force and we keep dumping more and more money into them. Why? You know, like if motherfuckers are dying all the time, why are we giving those people who are killing them more guns? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you don't need that.
Absolutely.
The whole time when I was trying to talk to this person about that exact argument, it just kept coming back to, well, defunding means giving them no funding. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Me personally, I believe probably they don't deserve any funding, but I don't know the actual implications of that. But I do think that whole time it became an argument about, you don't know what defunding means. And I'm like, okay, well, let's act like when I say defunding, it means this, because it's what it fucking means.
Yeah.
And the whole time they kept sending me a screenshot over and over of the word defund. So I just wanted to say to that person who added absolutely nothing to this conversation and just made everyone in my thread angry, suck my whole fucking dick.
Eat a dick and
don't
die.
Listen to my fucking music. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, this whole time you just want to be fucking mad at me just because I lean left. And I'm like sitting here, why? Like, this is important. What we're talking about is important. And y'all are sitting here arguing about semantics. Like, just fucking suck my dick. Like, just fuck off.
And it's not even leaning left in my eyes. It's at this point, it's like just a human thing. I don't think anyone on the right should be looking at what's happening and trying to justify it through the political party that they favor. It has nothing to do with that. A lot of these people are so angry and they know all the stores that have been looted. You know Macy's has been looted, but you don't know Breonna Taylor. You don't know that she was shot while sleeping in her own goddamn home. Yeah. You know that Target was looted, but you don't know Sandra Bland was assaulted and arrested for failure to signal. They took her mugshot while she was dead. People know every little corner shop but they don't know Tanisha Anderson, who was mentally ill and murdered by the police, who had been asked by her family to help her. This is not an incident that starts and ends with George Floyd. George Floyd said the exact same things as Eric Garner. So many people were surprised on the new RTJ album. Killer Mike drops a "I Can't Breathe" line. Damn, is he prophetic? No, y'all are fucking forgetful. Eric Garner said the exact goddamn thing half a decade ago.
Yep.
And you know what? Since Floyd, it's been said again.
Yeah.
On average, about 100 black people die at the hand of the police every year. That's like one every 3 days in the United States. This is an issue that's beyond you. We need to collectively start holding ourselves accountable and stop deflecting. We need to collectively work towards a point where we look at and treat racists the same way we look at rapists and pedophiles. You know why? White people hate pedophiles and rapists? Because they could be a target. Their children could be a target. Racism, however, in a world where where in the West, at least in America, where the whites have had it so good for so long and they're basically on top of the world, racism is just not as pressing of an issue. But if they had kids, oof. Imagine if a family moves in next to you and you guys somehow start talking about a local pedophile, whatever, and they express indifference. They say, well, I kind of, I don't agree with it, but I don't aggressively disagree with it because I don't plan on having kids. What the fuck?
Yeah.
You think that'd be fucking stupid?
1000% agree. And I think it's so easy for people, for white people, just to be, and it's something that I've grown up around a lot. I mean, you know where I'm from, man. Like, the fucking you can't go a fucking yard away without seeing a fucking Confederate flag out here. And it's a real life thing. And it's like, here it's so ingrained. And it's just like, bro, I mean, I'm going to be like 1000%. Like, there's been so many times in my life where it's just like people, not like your homeboys, but like your homeboys, like, are just fucked up, and it becomes a point where it's like you grow numb to it. And I think that's sad because when I hear somebody say some racist shit around here, I'm just like, yeah, this is where I live. And I've been fighting every time I fight it. It feels like every time you get tired. You get tired of getting in arguments with people and trying to tell people about themselves. But I think it'd be fucked up of me not to, I think, especially like me being in the position that I'm in, as being a white dude, a guest in rap music, something that literally pays my bills, that is not, it's like I don't really belong, I feel like I belong, but acting like I straight up belong is like me putting my fucking feet on the couch and grinding my shoes into it, and that ain't my couch, Yeah. I'm a guest in the house. And it's just like you see everybody. I just want to say, just like for the record, okay, on the issue of the Confederate flag, everybody here that I've ever talked to who has a Confederate flag shirt, which is a lot of people here, everyone who owns a Confederate flag will always say the phrase heritage, not hate. Right. And I just want to say, I've heard every single one of those people say the N-word with a hard R at least one time. And speaking as someone who has infiltrated by proximity, it's real. And all these motherfuckers will dog whistle and try to say things that make them out to be like, oh, well, I mean, I don't treat a black person any different than I would treat anybody else. But by the way, stop rioting and not care about George Floyd, not care about Breonna Taylor, not care about anyone, and it makes me feel terrible, dog. Like it's such a different mindset. And it's so scary, and it makes me feel like sometimes I like wake up and I'm like, why the fuck does this exist? And then it's just like, when you think about it, it's like, oh, then you could always move, but that shit lives everywhere. Yeah. And people are just louder about it here. People are comfortable here.
And they'll convince themselves they're not racist. And, and they'll do things like
100%, dude. They will tell you, I've heard people who say the N-word negatively, not like, oh, yeah, that's my N-word, but like negatively about black people, argue with me that I'm fucked up for calling them racist for it.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here just like, okay, cool. So like, it's like y'all just like gaslight everybody around you, about your fucking problems. But I mean, I feel like it's just like, it's a learned trait. Like, obviously you don't, I think that's some shit that just gets passed down. People are super traditional here. And unfortunately, the traditions of a lot of white people is racism, and people don't want to talk about it.
And they will point to things like, hey, I like Candace Owens because she has the same stupid fucking opinions as me, and she's black, so therefore I can't be racist. I'm agreeing with someone who's black, therefore I'm not racist. And that also goes for not even the people who disagree with these people, the people who are outwardly claiming I'm not racist, I hate the Confederate flag, or Fox News is the devil. The moderate white are also oftentimes racist. They're also oftentimes just as fucking useless. Because what's the point? What's the point of you telling yourself you're not racist, patting yourself on the back, making a little black and white video compilation that we see every fucking month celebrities do, making something about themselves? The pandemic kicks in. Whoa, let's sing this fucking song and make it all about ourselves. Fucking Black Lives Matter movement is really like picking up steam and everybody's talking about it. Fuck, nobody's talking about us again. Let's make it all about ourselves and holding accountability of ourselves instead of actually addressing action beyond that, addressing long-term action, because patting on ourselves on the back every 4 years has done fuck all. Has done nothing.
100%.
What have
100%.
we achieved with realizing each time that, oh man, this thing happened, it was bad, and I disagree with it, I'm a good person. Anyway, I can go back to my normal life. And that's the point I would like to address to people who probably align with me on the political spectrum and on the moral compass overall. Forget about returning to a normal way of life. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Normal has been hell for too many for too long. So fuck that normal. Don't just support black businesses this week or this month. A lot of big corporations that have seamlessly integrated themselves into our lives built their wealth and power off of hate, divide, prison labor. It's time we start holding them accountable and ourselves by informing ourselves before making these decisions and continuing to make these decisions. There's so many brands that have, throughout this whole thing, fortunately been ousted as incredibly racist. Even like the smaller goth and hip-hop clothing places run by white people.
Oh yeah, fuck Dolls Kill, dog. Fuck Dolls Kill for the longest, but actually fuck Dolls Kill now. Like,
fuck Dolls Kill.
What was it? Who else? Urban Outfitters. Fuck Riot Games. League of Legends has always sucked. Fuck Riot Games.
Yeah, absolutely. There's and the thing is, Dolls Kill, we're stealing a lot of their clothing ideas and just straight up designs from a lot of black businesses too. So do some research. I wish I had these names on hand. I do not, but it's readily available on Instagram, on Twitter, online in general. Look into it. Support those businesses. Hold yourself accountable, because these other corporations have had hundreds of years of head start. Not that one in particular, but a lot of these others have. And so they're seamlessly integrated, and it's going to be tough to just because we haven't been holding them accountable, but that's what change is about. Change is not a 1 week thing. Change is change, and you have to commit to it. You can't halfway change. So reject the echo chamber of the media and the racists online. These people will have you believe that only peaceful means must be explored to everything, all the while aggressively continuing to exercise violence to restrain the voice of the hurt and systemically oppressed. Freedom wasn't peacefully taken from Africans back then. So think twice before becoming a victim to shallow hypocrisy. My other thing is, which this is a controversial thing, and it's crazy, it's controversial. Reparations. Reparations must happen. Let me quote.
I 100% feel you on that.
Let me quote Martin Luther King right quick. He said, whenever the issue of compensation or preferential treatment for the black person is raised, some of our friends recoil in horror. The black person should be granted equality. They agree, but they should ask nothing more. On the surface, this appears reasonable, but it is not realistic, for it is obvious if a man is entered the starting line in a race 300 years after another man, the first would have to perform some impossible feat in order to catch up with his fellow runners. That's exactly the point. Black people and Latinos, let's take some recent examples to drive this idea home. Black people and Latinos were targeted with subprime loans that ultimately led to the housing crisis of 2008. That's not even 50 years after redlining was made illegal. Things haven't changed. Actions need to be taken to reverse this and many other atrocities. And one form they must take place in is reparations. I'm just going to throw examples out. I'm not a politician, but some things that come to mind immediately is like loan rates for black people need to change. College education has to be made free for black people. Healthcare needs to change in a similar way too, and so on and so forth. Yes, we need preferential treatment of black people. It is necessary to undo everything we've done up until now.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with that sentiment. I just feel like it's I think people always, I think a lot of even like people on the left as well will say, I just think it's funny how it's like people will say like they'll agree with all these points that you just made and then be like, oh, but like reparations doesn't need to happen. They'll be like, oh yeah, all these things are like terrible atrocities and such and such and such, and it should be rectified. And then someone's like, well, maybe I should rectify it. And then they'll be like, nah, that's unrealistic.
And that's crazy, right?
And like 100%, I don't know. I just want to say, just for the record, I'm not like an economics guy. I do not know the like implications of like how that would impact the economy or anything like that. But I do know that just on a moral standpoint of just like that's the only thing that makes sense based off of what like the argument at hand. The argument at hand is just like, have black people been done dirty for so long in America? Yes. How do you fix it? There you go. You know what I'm saying? It's super simple to me. And it wouldn't fix it. I want to say, just for the record, that wouldn't 100% fix things. You can't just throw money at people and be like, oh, y'all can't complain, because that's fucked up.
But it's a good first. but it's a good first step.
100%, because then that eliminates to an extent that gap has been systemically created.
That's exactly the point. That's perfectly put. We need to reduce that gap, and in order to do that, we need to take drastic measures, because slavery of over 200 years is drastic measures. And when slavery was abolished, slavery wasn't gone. There's people alive now whose great-grandparents were born as slaves. This shit isn't so long ago, it's all forgotten, forgiven. This shit is a current issue and it continues to affect people. How can you be accepting that generational hatred and systemic racism is a real thing and be against reparations? It makes very little sense to me, and I would like to hear somebody convince me that there's any sound argument to be made against reparations. And reparations need to, again, I'm not an economics professor or anything like that either. Just some ideas that popped in my head is education needs to be free for all black people all the way to college and beyond. A lot of these big businesses.
I do want to say I'm a proponent where I personally believe that education should be free for everyone because knowledge is very important.
Absolutely. I agree. And I know that college education in particular is a subject of great concern for a lot of people, making it free for everyone. Is there are a lot of, again, economic concerns that I'm not fully in tune with, but I do know that we could reallocate some of those police funds that aren't necessary to achieve some of that. I know that, for instance, companies that have existed now for over 100 years and are worth billions and almost worth trillions, those companies benefited from slavery. Those companies benefited, and some continue to benefit from the 13th Amendment. So they must be held accountable beyond whatever taxes they pay now. Those funds could be reallocated. That blood money
Which,
they
by
have.
the way, the taxes they pay now are ridiculously low. A lot of them, yeah.
Absolutely bullshit. Take that blood money and put it where it needs to go. And lastly,
motherfuckers always just want to hit you with the like, oh, well, we didn't do that. You know, it's like, of course you didn't fucking do that. Like you weren't there, but you're in a system of.
You're not actively undoing it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to step up and be the person who is undoing it. And when they are, then people are like, look at this fucking loon over here, because it's so ingrained, man. Like, I think, like, I'm one of those people that I believe that, like, inherently, if you're like a white person and you were born into this society, it would 1000% be a miracle if you're not in some way contributing to some kind of racist agenda. And I don't mean that on a perspective of like, you wake up and you say, I just don't like black people, or I don't like Mexicans, or I think that it's deeper than that. It's never just like as simple as, well, I mean, sometimes it is, but that isn't the case most of the time. I think that it's more of a kind of an inconsiderate, everything's about me in situations. And you can see that with white celebrities coming out and being like, I apologize for blank. And I'm like sitting here like, okay, well, how about just don't do that and just donate and don't make it about you in front of a camera. Maybe, or let me see if I get
piano
a better
music
example.
and a black and white filter in front of it as if you're the fucking victim. Move on. You can make a concise and poignant point without doing another one of those stupid fucking celebrity compilation videos.
Yes.
Share information that will
100%.
benefit the people. Go protest. Use your platform better than that.
Did you get a chance to watch any of the new Dave Chappelle stand-up?
I haven't
I don't know if you call it a stand-up. He just released one. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've seen various clips, like little 10-minute clips, which, by the way, how do you get 10-minute clips on Twitter? I want to know. Stops at 220 for me. Anyway, I need this information. But he was talking about, I think it was Don Lemon was talking about, I think it was him. I can't remember. But he was talking about
CNN.
Yeah. So he was talking about holding celebrities, like, oh, why hasn't this celebrity talked about this? Like, why hasn't this celebrity talked about this? And he was like, Dave was talking about, like, I wish you would say that to me right now. Like, this isn't something I've been talking about already, you know? And he was just like, it all came back to that when 9/11 happened, and he was just like, what does Ja Rule think?
Yeah.
And he's just like, no, like the streets need to talk. Y'all need to just put your money where your mouth is.
Yep.
And I think, I mean, I do think I don't think there's anything wrong with a celebrity talking about this and making it known and using their influence. I think that's good. But I do think it is kind of like that corny, like, well, what does Ja Rule think about 9/11? Like, who the fuck cares what Ja Rule thinks about 9/11? What is he doing to help?
You saw that new video, right? That I've been sort of referencing with like a bunch of celebrities, like, I apologize, blah, blah, all this shit. Who do you
like Aaron Paul in it and a few other people.
That was a shame. I was super embarrassed for Aaron Paul. But
as soon as I saw Aaron Paul's face and he looked like super sad, he was like, I apologize.
Yeah, he was
and I'm like sitting here like, that apology don't mean shit, my man.
Don't mean shit. Could you imagine you are a victim of systemic oppression? You wake up scared for your life. You go to sleep scared for your life. You're out there protesting. You pull out your fucking phone. You see that and you're like, oh, Aaron Paul is sorry. I feel way better now. What the fuck are you thinking?
I don't know why, like Aaron Paul. I just want to bully Aaron Paul on everyone. I don't know why.
I like Aaron Paul, and I think that's why he stuck out the most, because that was a disappointment, right? It's a poor PR decision. Whoever is his PR person either needed to step in or needs to be replaced. But the point is, I think in all of this is, that I think a lot of people are misunderstanding the objectives, right? Like we outlined some of the objectives, but the main one has been that we need to change society, the way we look at racism. We need to no longer just be not racist, we need to be anti-racist. That's the kind of society we need to become. And passing a law here and there will not fix things. Saying sorry here and there will not fix things. It didn't fix things 5 years ago, it didn't fix things 10 years ago, it didn't fix things 20 years ago, and so on and so forth. Actual change needs to take place. We need to hold people accountable. And if that means fucking rioting, then so be it.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to bring one thing up too, speaking of the changing how racism is processed and just in general in America and the whole world. I would say one of the best things that I ever did for myself, and I feel like a lot of people of color will appreciate this. For me, what I did was I tried to, because I mean, this is something that's ingrained through white society just because you think that's how it is. Don't knee jerk react and get defensive about something that clearly isn't pointed at you. I think a lot of times there's a lot of people who are venting on Twitter or whatever, and they'll say white people blank. And then there's always that like knee jerk reaction in people where they say, well, you know what? Like all my friends and me aren't like that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then don't get upset.
Then shut the fuck up.
Don't be. Yeah. Exactly. The conversation is not about you. 100%. That's really what it all boils down to in these types of interactions, is that white people are very much trained through media of seeing this is a whole, they'll watch a movie and it's always white people and they have a black person who's the side character, or they have a Mexican person that's a side character, or an Asian person who's a side character, but the white person's always the main character. And to the point where people get fucking upset if they have a black person, i.e. Star Wars, which is 100% just racist. like if you get upset because one of the main characters in Star Wars was a black guy, then like what the fuck's wrong with you? First of all, Lando Calrissian existed, also the coolest person that ever existed, but that's another conversation. But like I don't understand. It's like everybody wants to get in their feelings, and I'm like sitting here just like, don't get upset about criticism about white people when that isn't you. Like if you're not, and if it is you, just work on trying to be better at it. I think that it's simple. It's incredibly simple. And I think that was one thing, because like when I was younger, like way younger, you would see people say, oh, well, this person's racist. And the first knee-jerk thought is like, that's not racist. He didn't mean blank. And I'm like sitting here like, well, maybe it's insensitive. And then it's just like, well, maybe it's racist. You know what I mean? I don't know. Sometimes it's not your conversation to, I would say most often than not, it's not a conversation for a white person to decide, oh, is this racist? Now you can have your own thoughts on things, but sometimes your voice isn't necessary in this conversation. Yeah,
don't make this about yourself. And if the shoe fits, well then, so be it. Because if you're reacting to me, it's always like, well, I guess something struck a chord for them specifically. So don't be like that. And I need to reiterate this point because I again, it's worrying seeing like less and less information being spread online now than a week ago. We cannot allow ourselves to grow complacent yet again. We cannot. That's never worked. We've made that mistake over and over again. So do what you can. Spread information where necessary, and make sure that you're spreading accurate information, because you don't want the racists to then take what you said and paint you as an idiot.
Yes.
Attend the protests if you can. Donate directly to the victims' families, as well as black-owned businesses and anti-racism charities if you can. Don't stop educating yourself. Just constantly read. Every opportunity that you have to read up on racism, anti-racism, Black history, and things that I've discussed with Bill on this podcast so far, such as the 2008 housing crisis and all that. Look into these things. Read. Educate yourself. If you have a platform, use your platform. If you have a voice, don't use that voice to make it everything about yourself. And most importantly, hold yourself and those around you accountable. Something must change. And it's not about you. It's about Black lives being significant and important to us, just as important as any other fucking life. Black lives matter. Simple as that. Your anger, frustration, and confusion can wait. Shut the fuck up if you don't know what anyone's talking about. And find out, learn, educate. And
also listen.
And
just
listen. Listen. Yeah, this is an important.
It's just sitting back and listening. Like God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Just sit back, listen, get people's perspectives, and add that to your own. And don't. I think that now is a critical time for a lot of white people to sit back and analyze themselves and what they can do to help. I think that's a super important thing. And don't just come out of here with your own opinions, and don't be afraid to try to grow is what I'm getting at. And I think that is important just on a personal level, because I think if everybody just sat back and listened for a little bit and paid attention to what people are saying, you'd understand that this isn't just some. I think a lot of people think that, especially online, that people are on some kind of like weird lunatic fringe of like hyper leftism. And it's not about that. This is not a politics issue. It's just a people that are frustrated, people that are furious over years and years and years of these things building up. I remember I was super active on Tumblr when the Ferguson stuff was happening. Mm-hmm. And this feels just like that.
Yeah.
Maybe stronger.
Yeah, stronger.
But it feels the same. And it's just like, that was I feel like that Ferguson, I feel like was the point when I kind of started being more empathetic in these situations. I think because I saw so much of it. And I think that's important, to see more and more and listen more and more. If we could pull anything positive out of this, it's that hopefully it'll make a change in society. Also, this is completely unrelated, but have you heard any of George Floyd's stuff with DJ Screw? Because I didn't know that he had a whole like tape with DJ Screw, and that's like such a fire thing.
That's so cool. I mean,
it's tight,
it makes
dude.
sense. It makes sense how like given his age and that he grew up in Houston. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I watched the whole thing on like Bun B was talking about how he had like some distant relations like with him in music. Like years and years ago, but I don't know how active he was. I know he was like older at that point, but like I went back and he actually did. I don't know if they're still doing it. I hope they are, but they released on Bandcamp. They re-released the old Screw tape, like ripped from cassette, and all of the funds from that went to the family. So like y'all definitely go give that a listen, especially if you're into like, regardless of any of this stuff that we're talking about. I'm also just saying go listen to that because it's tight.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that I'm gonna do that. And I forgot to mention one other person I wanted to mention when talking about everything was Kimberly Jones. She's a YA author and former bookseller, and you must have seen her online. She was also in the news. She talked about the the government and the police in particular breaking America's social contract, and how a lot of white people white privileged people are upset that people are looting, or that sometimes these protests evolve into riots, because they look at it as a breaking of the social contract. We've all collectively agreed not to loot. That's why, there are so many homeless people. They don't go around looting because they know the repercussions. And again, it's a social contract. And the police have repeatedly broken the social contract. And so that's why people are furious. So try to understand that. And, you actually reminded me one last thing I wanted to say. I almost forgot to say this. When I did my stream on Twitch, the last one I did, which was a week or week and a half ago, I've been sick. But when I was discussing the subject matter, some people in the chat, some of my fellow non-black people were very emotional. And in a good way, like empathetic to the situation, but to the point where it was so overwhelming for them that they had to walk away from the screen, from my stream for a while before they could come back. And I know this is going to come across harsh, but if it's tough and emotional for you, imagine what it's like for a black mother raising a black son. Again, don't make this about yourself. Redirect your frustration and your empathy into meaningful action.
Exactly. Use those emotions for good. I think people are fired up. I think a lot of white people are fired up in this. People who are allies and who are trying to help are fired up about this. But it's just like, this is something that you walk into and you can walk away from. For a black person, this is every fucking interaction with the police. Every time you go, let me tell you a story, dude. When I was like 19 or 20, so like 1972, I went to I was going to my friend's house, and I was working with these it was two rappers. It was at the time it was Tay Gotham. I think he's changed his name by now. I don't know if he makes music anymore. And then Yamin, who I believe still makes music, but that was 57, and that was I wasn't in 57, but I produced for them a lot. And a lot of like deep lore people know who 57 is. We were going to my friend's house and they had a routine traffic stop. Okay. I was driving. No, my friend was driving. Richard was driving, and I was riding shotgun, and they were in the back seat. And my friend Richard, his dad, he's not in law enforcement, but he works. I mean, he was a coroner, so he's around law enforcement a lot, And so we pulled up, and then it was just normal traffic stop, making sure that we didn't have anything on us or anything, And he comes up and he starts talking to us, and he goes, "Oh, hey boys, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah." Right? White cop, by the way, just want to reiterate. How you guys doing? Asking me questions that are being very nice, And then he saw that we had two black dudes in the back seat. And then the first thing that this motherfucker does, as soon as he sees black people, is he pulls his flashlight out and starts flashing them through the window. And then, like, Richard, he looks at him and he's like, "Hey, why are you flashing my buddies?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just making sure that like nobody has anything on them." And I'm sitting here like, "Oh, that's what that is. That's something I've never dealt with before." As a white person, especially in redneck America, in the countryside out here, I've never went to a traffic stop when I didn't have something on me, where I was afraid for, and I look back at them and they were freaked out, bro. they were freaked out because it's just like, why are they like, they didn't do anything. They're just chilling, you know, good dudes, you know, they never got in trouble. They never did anything bad at all, you know.
But history has probably taught them that, like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything, you know?
And I always thought, man, it's weird, dude, because it's like at that age, I'd never seen it like ever because like I had black friends, but like I wasn't driving that much back then. That was like right when I got my license really late, and I never saw like that. And like to them, like, I mean, they were freaked out, but it was like they felt like I'm supposed to be freaked out here. And I'm like sitting here just like, it's a traffic stop. We don't even have any like beer or anything, you know? Like, why would we be freaked out? And then like I looked and I saw it happen and I was like, fuck, this is real. This is a real thing that happens. And people want to say like, oh, that was a bad cop. And I'm like sitting here, well, there's a lot of fucking bad cops, bro. And that dude still works on the fucking police force here. I know his son, you know? And I'm like sitting here like, you know, like, and his son's like a fan of our music and shit, you know? Yeah. And I'm just like sitting here just like, it's such a weird thing. It's like, oh yeah, your dad's fucked up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's fucked up. He would agree.
That's a great example, and reminds me of two examples that actually come to mind from the experience of my friends. The first friend, I'm not going to mention them by name because I'm not sure if they would want me to talk about this in a public forum, but I'll just refer to them as like generally my friend, right? They were 14 years old, black, and coming home. And this kid's just a nerd. Was a 14-year-old nerd who liked video games, was interested in computers and everything, just walking home, and for whatever reason, a car pulls up on the side of the road, an arm extends out of it with a gun, and he gets shot, and the car goes away. To this day, he doesn't know what the hell that was about, didn't recognize those gentlemen. He never got himself into any other trouble. Otherwise, it was just like a weird, what happened? He passes out, wakes up in the hospital. Yeah. Again, 14 years old. He looks even younger at this point. You know, he's a very youthful looking fella. And the cops are right there screaming at him like, what did you do? You know, well, how did this happen? What have you gotten yourself involved with? Blah, blah, blah. They were questioning him. First reaction wasn't empathy. First reaction was like, oh, this young kid gets shot. How is it his fault? Let's find out how it's his fault. What did he do wrong to make that happen? How
exactly.
is that?
I know who you're talking about, and it's like 100% like, what the fuck did he do wrong? You know, like what the fuck did he do wrong? Like,
would that happen if it was a white kid? I don't think so. I think it'd be like, oh shit,
dude. I can guarantee you. If I got shot in the arm right now, I'd wake up. The police would be sucking my fucking dick, bro. They'd be sitting there like, oh man, like, was it a gang member? Like, I swear to God, bro, around here, dude, it would be, I know that the whole world isn't like where I'm at because I live in a very like particularly openly racist area where I just hide in the woods and no one knows I live here. But I would say that that's definitely a thing that happens. And I know where that person's from, and I know that place is just like this. But I would say that that's probably more likely to happen. Well, I mean, I think it's the only time that would happen is with a black person. I really do not think a white person, especially one without a criminal record, especially one was a kid, they wouldn't question a white kid like that. Yeah. It's just not.
No, it's inconceivable.
Could you imagine that though? Could you imagine getting shot and being woke up to being fucking interrogated?
I can't. It's inconceivable. It's so insane to me. Just the thought of it. It seems so surreal. And yet what seems surreal to people like me is unfortunately a gruesome, appalling, but not surprising reality for too many. And the other example I was going to bring up is of our friend Rekadam, Roger, who about 5 years ago, I think 5-6 years ago, he went on Reddit and on Reddit AMA, and he was going to do an AMA. He said, "I'm a black video game developer, independent video game developer living in Japan. Ask me anything." Great, right? Like, cool. That seems like an interesting
Yes.
thing. And there were a lot of comments from kids who were like, "Hey, I'm a young black kid myself, and I'm interested in developing video games. How did you get into that? What do you use?" They were interested because they see like, oh, there's someone like them. There's someone that looks like them, and that is a victim to the same world. The same oppressive world, regardless of where you are, right? So they were interested.
Wait, I do want to. Can I butt in real quick?
Sure.
I also think that because I know where this is going, but like I think that the context, especially of him being like, I live in Japan. I'm a black person, a black game developer that lives in Japan, should be enough context to where no one should be able to criticize that statement.
Yeah, Japan is one of the most.
I just want to point that that's my fucking little thing to throw in there.
Yeah, no, it's one of the most historically xenophobic places in the world. Their bloodlines are so purely Japanese for a reason, because they shut the rest of the world out. So when you have someone come over whose face looks different, let alone their skin color, then of course, there's going to be, okay, well, people had maybe questions like, well, what's it like being black in Japan? Do you, do you see any sort of treatment that you get that is different to your white friends or your Asian friends, right? And stuff like that. There are so many opportunities for many good questions. A lot of black people who want to be game developers or get into that. Lots of black people who want to go to Japan or move to Japan. And I'm sure lots who want basically both what Roger was. It was a black video game developer, right? Nothing wrong with putting that forward. People need role models. Black people needed a Tiger Woods for a lot of them to feel like it's maybe not weird for them to play golf and be black. And yes, it's sad that that's necessary, but that's where we're at. This is the world we live in. We gotten ourselves collectively as human beings into this mess through genocide and racism and our stubborn refusal of making things right. So you would think, what could possibly go wrong? And so this is an example of not like on the street police discrimination. This is sort of within the landscape of the internet. There were a couple of comments, and especially one gentleman that was insistent on like, why did you have to mention that you're black? What's the point? How is that relevant? And these are a lot of the times I feel like these are maybe in their minds moderates, whites, centrist liberals, who are like, well, I don't see color except for when it's black on black violence. I think if we just close our eyes and not talk about racism, racism will disappear, because that's how things work in life, right? Absolutely. Slavery was abolished because people stopped talking about slavery. And then one day people just forgot what slavery was.
Hold on. I do not want to interrupt too hard, but I just want to point out, did you see that fucking post where it was this white dude talking about like, man, y'all don't give enough credit to the white male. We ended slavery.
Right.
And I was just like sitting here like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Give the donkey of the day to that fucking dude, bro. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, black people are super content, and there weren't at all individuals trying to educate themselves and learn how to read and stand up. There was none of that. Black people were just accepting of the fact that, oh, we're slaves, I guess, forever now. And thank God for the white man who thought, wait a minute, hold the fucking phone. I think we've benefited enough from this, so maybe we could just stop being bad so I can sleep at night.
Yeah, exactly, dude. The Industrial Revolution is like right around the corner, so it's cool, dude.
So it's cool.
Fine.
Now we can afford
good now.
We can afford, to get rid of this system in favor of this.
I didn't mean to interrupt your story about Rekadam. I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, that's amazing, and it ties in quite beautifully in the sense that like it gives you two very vastly different examples of stupidity, of ignorance that isn't harmless at all. Because this fucking stupidity is contagious, and it spreads like wildfire. And yeah, so and the funny thing is, the person that commented on Rogers AMA, all those things, deleted their comments recently. So
good for them.
Good for them. You know, interesting. But they insisted, and there were multiple people who are like, "Yeah, that's besides the point. Who cares that you're black? That blah 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 blah. Clearly, you did. Clearly, you did."
The difference is if I say I'm a white game developer, the difference is like, okay, and because it's a industry in America
dominated
that I feel like is dominated by white people. You know, I'm not saying across the board. Like, obviously, there's other countries that, like Japanese country, like Japanese countries,
people, Chinese people, like Indians, Japanese, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That they just do, like, it's mostly Japanese people that will make games. But I think that you don't hear a lot, especially indie game developers, especially at the time. I think you see more of it now. But at the time, you didn't see any, like 2013, 2014, that I knew of. I didn't know a lot of black indie game developers. And that's cool. And my first thought process is, instead of being like, well, what about the white game developers? Or like, oh, I don't need to know that you're like, then it's not for you, bro. But to me, my first thought when I see, oh, I'm a black indie game developer living in Japan, I go, well, that's interesting. Tight, you know? And why is it, as soon as like black people try to encroach on something and be like, oh yeah, I'm black, by the way, then like, why be upset? Why is the first knee-jerk reaction be like, man, fuck this guy? You know?
What's the point? What was going on in that guy's life where he could afford to get offended by that and spend time that day returning to the same thread and commenting over and over again, insisting on it? How privileged must your life be where that's what you do in your free time, is get offended about something that had no intention to offend anyone, and on the surface, objectively, to anyone who with more than 2 brain cells, is not an offensive statement to begin with. It's ridiculous, and it's a reality.
I think that a lot of people were trying to say, well, just because you're black, like how does that matter? Like, it's all just a game, and we like are you? I think that people were trying to get at the fact that's like, are you using the fact that you're black as a selling point when your game might not hold up on its own? Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have ever played any of Rekadam's games, like Celestial Mechanica or anything like that, but they're fucking fun. Okay.
They're incredible.
They're great. And he doesn't have to say, oh, I'm black, by the way, here's a game. You know, he doesn't have to. That's not something that he has to say. But why do you get upset when, I mean, his games back it up. His shit is good. Rogers is a really good fucking dude. He's good at what he does.
He's a polymath.
He's a good person.
He's an incredible drummer, incredible game developer, and just coder in general. And an incredible rapper, an incredible musician, an incredible friend, and just a genuine kind and one of the smartest, kindest people I know. And and that's the thing. It's people need to realize, they need to open up their eyes and realize this is a real thing. It's so easy for so many to just close their eyes right now and let this thing, quote unquote, ride out, right? Because that's how the system was also built. This system, hundreds and hundreds of years, where it's and it's not just America. The whole world is guilty of this. But let's just use America for example, where this is not the first time people are standing up and voicing outrage. The system is really calculated in the way that it's built together, where it takes this outrage, takes it until it exhausts the people who are outraged, and then it does nothing to change. And you are a participant of that. If you decide to, I'm not going to read the news for a few weeks. I'm not going to go on Twitter. I'm going to avoid these videos when recommended on YouTube and all of that, because, It's so stressful for me. I'm overwhelmed. I'm already a good guy. I already agree all of this is bad. So I've done my part. I'm morally a good person. So therefore, I'm not part of the problem. Yes, the fuck you are. And it's okay to realize it now. It sucks that it's taken so long. It really fucking sucks that it's taking y'all way too long. But better late than never. Let's make a change together.
We've seen this happen so many times where I just remember for me, seeing Ferguson the way that it was. Mm-hmm. And
during Ramona
it
era,
felt like, damn, this is different than all the other times that this has happened. I've had that feeling before, and I feel the exact same way now. But I felt like that in 2014, 2015. Like, I felt like that then, and nothing really changed.
Do you remember the neighbor? Let's not name them, but I was there. We were living together during the Ferguson thing when it started going off. And our neighbor, who otherwise seemed like a good guy who likes dogs, said, bragged about having a lot of guns, and that if that shit ever got to Colombia, that he'd be ready. What was the implication there? I
don't even, for some reason, I don't even remember that interaction. Which neighbor was this?
It's a hefty fellow with a dog. We came over to, loved his guns.
He's like such a crazy gun nerd. Like, he pulled a gun on me one time because he thought I was trying to break into his house. I think that he just likes to brag about his guns. I don't think that he actually. But I do think that it is like a scary.
That's a scary thing. That's a danger, especially when you consider people like.
No, 100%, because it doesn't matter your intent at that point.
Yeah,
that point,
you're just looking for an excuse.
It just becomes like, oh, like you're gonna kill someone.
Yeah, you're looking for an excuse to play with your guns, and I feel like
dude. That's fucked up, because it's just like, oh, well, if anything happens to me, I'm ready. And I'm like sitting here just like, what's going to happen to you?
Think of Zimmerman.
What are you so afraid of?
Think of Zimmerman. He wasn't a police officer.
Exactly.
You know, he was just a regular ass dude who did what he did, got away with it, and now sells a bunch of merchandise, disrespectful merchandise from that. Successfully making a really good business off of that, you know? Like, I think he signs Skittle packs. He also...
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, because... yeah, that's right. Jesus. And he also... what is it? There's some sort of portraiture that he's done. There's like, I think, portraits of himself.
I know that there was something that happened when... there was a portrait of him that sold for like $1 million or something like that. Dude, the thing I can't quite understand about that, well, I can't understand, but I just don't want to understand about just a person being that fucked up is, okay, let's say there was a world. Let's say, because this doesn't exist, but let's say that this was a world where he was justified in killing Trayvon Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. It does not exist, for the record. I don't want someone to take that out of context. That doesn't exist. But let's say it does, because to him, it does. To him, in his brain, in George Zimmerman's brain, he feels like he was justified in killing that black child. I still, even if you feel like you were justified in self-defense or stand your ground or whatever the fuck bullshit that won him that case. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why would you then try to profit off of the death of another person, regardless of how you felt about them, regardless of how that impacted your life? Like, a person died, and it's unfortunate, regardless of your feelings on the situation. You're sitting here, and then that goes even deeper into like, you're accepting money from people who just hate black people. And it's not about, like, you can't tell me selling Skittles packs when that was, or with that signed. You can't.
Can you give him a context? Actually, I realize maybe some people are not in the know why the Skittle packs is in particular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing was that Trayvon Martin. How old was Trayvon when he was murdered? Do you know?
I think
very young.
He was very young. I think. Oh, man, yeah. I'm gonna
probably under 15. You'd think, right? Like what, 13, 14, something like that.
I think he was 17, 16, somewhere like that. But yeah, young.
Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. He was a kid. He was underage, and I mean, even if he wasn't, it wouldn't really matter.
No,
but
really,
I think that adds to context a bit. And he shot him. George Zimmerman was not in law enforcement. Just for the record, he was not involved in law enforcement, I don't believe.
Not at all.
But he was a part of like a neighborhood watch, which is kind of like a police, like for people who don't know how that works. Yeah, it's, basically vigilantes that are grouped together to protect the neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was on the phone and he followed this kid around who he said looked suspicious. He had a hoodie on because apparently a fucking hoodie is suspicious. So I've been fucking looking suspicious my entire life, apparently. So he followed this kid around. There's phone calls of him chasing him down because he looked suspicious. He shot him. And then he didn't have anything on him. I'm talking about Trayvon Martin. Didn't have anything on him except for a pack of Skittles and something else inside of his hoodie.
Yep,
I can't remember. Something that was completely like something that you would think a child, like a kid would have.
Yeah,
a teenager would have. And so the context is he murdered this boy about fucking. Because he looked suspicious. I don't know. There was some kind of altercation as well, but it was like when that was going on, he was on the phone with law enforcement and he kept pressing on and following him. Yeah. And even if there was an altercation, I don't know the entire story behind that.
Well, Trayvon Martin beat his ass because like he realized this person was following him and everything, and it was like a self-defense thing. And then getting humiliated, I'm fairly certain George Zimmerman pulled out the gun, shot him, and argued self-defense, which he was acquitted for because he's not black.
Yeah, but let's say that Trayvon Martin did overstep his bounds and punched him or whatever. Yeah. Then whatever was said that happened, which I don't even really know what happened. That's not his place to take matters into his own hands and shoot him after the altercation's been done. One could argue pulling a gun on someone when they're being attacked in self-defense. That's self-defense. I think it's fucked up, but I think that you could argue that that's self-defense versus chasing someone down after the fact, being on the phone with law enforcement, and then before they got there, him shooting him. That's murder. I'm sorry. Stand your ground laws can suck my fucking dick. You murdered a kid, and what I'm getting at is this is obviously a thing that a lot of black people are very upset about. A lot of everyone is upset about it. Okay. But then after his death, George Zimmerman is now profiting off of signing Skittles packs, that, Trayvon Martin had Skittles. It's clearly a reference to the murder that he committed, and he is profiting off of it. And I'm sorry, the fact that he's profiting off of it is fucked up, but also the fact that people are buying it, I feel like is even more fucked up, because that's just like, there's no way to argue that that's not racist. There's no way. Like I'm sorry, if you support that, then like you need to just fucking not live. You need to live in.
But yeah,
my man,
I think you make a fantastic point. That's exactly it. Not only is it atrocious that he's selling that as a business, but that it is successful is very telling in itself. And
yes,
and yeah, so I don't know how any of that is defensible. It's again, it's something I keep saying. It's appalling, and yet somehow, unfortunately, not surprising. And so
I'm just saying, man. I know that you're not a religious man, but I would like to think I would like to think that a hell exists, and that when George Zimmerman dies, I hope that he is placed in the hottest part of hell, and also his underwear are made of gasoline.
Oh, but you see, so if you tie that George Zimmerman with the neighbor we just talked about, who just loved the idea of using his guns, and then the idea of the National Guard, which these people have normal day jobs, ordinarily. They get called upon, and there's like 50 factions of them. I think in DC alone, maybe. It's like they get a call to arms from the president, and this is militia. You know, like this is just like this is like an army. You know. And these people who, a lot of them are itching to use excessive force. Like we've seen videos of people at like 3 in the afternoon approaching like a wall of armed policemen that look like they're about to go to fucking war, and National Guard people, right? And they say, "What are you doing here?" The guy with the camera asks and says, "We're waiting for 5:30 or 5." Like, what happens at 5:30? He says, "We start at 5:30. I start beating the living dog shit out of you." And these are the people. These are people who, again, I think what Bill was doing with George Zimmerman, the hypothetical, is that, like, okay, let's say you somehow found a way to justify your actions. All the actions that followed show us that this person is inhuman. This is someone who's a monster, right? And these people who are itching to go and beat the shit out of unarmed protesters are monsters. And a motherfucker holding his knee over another man's neck for nearly 9 minutes long, knowingly that this guy is begging for his mom. He says he can't breathe. He's clearly tied up. He's not a threat to anyone. There's a bunch of other police officers around. People are begging you to stop, and you're sitting there calmly. There's pleasure in that. You're taking pleasure in that. And this is why we need to defund the police and change everything.
People don't just do shit like that without getting some kind of rocks off on it. Like, I mean, I don't know that man. I don't know the dude, but I'm sorry. If it fucking quacks like a duck, it's a duck, bro. If it quacks like a monster, it's a monster. It's fucked up. Like, there's no, I don't know. There's a right way to do things, and there's a wrong way to do things, and then there's a really wrong way to do things. And I think the thing that's so scary with that attitude at 5:30, we start beating your ass.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that's so scary with that attitude is that no one's there to de-escalate. Like, that is
who do you call?
Exactly. Like, you're in a situation where those people. They're trying to use fear tactics to make them either stop doing what they're doing. Here's my hot take of the day. I don't think those people, when I say those people, I don't think that the police officers in riot gear, I think that those people don't want people to go home. I don't think that it is. I think that it's become this me versus you situation, and they want people to wild out. And they know that they're the people in power, and they can do whatever they want, and they will not serve there won't be any consequences if they don't kill somebody. And if they do kill somebody, the consequences will be much less severe than if one of their people are killed.
Yeah.
And I think that they've got riot gear on. They've got guns. They've got guns with rubber bullets. They're not shooting them properly, by the way. You're supposed to aim for the ground and it bounce up, which, by the way, what the fuck in the first place?
Right.
But you're shooting people, and people are fucking dying, and people are losing eyes and stuff. Like, you've seen this white dude got hit in the face with a fucking tear gas canister, and
lost his eye,
took his eye out.
Yeah.
And then there's a fucking dude in a wheelchair lost his eye. Like, what the fuck? You guys are fucked up. I saw the video of the guy pushing down the the old man, the old white dude. They don't give a fuck, man.
Yeah,
they don't care about de-escalation.
Oh,
he tripped. I'm sorry. Like, no, suck my fucking dick,
And they didn't help him
dude.
at all. Or how about the 3 different videos in 3 different places where we've seen police officers go to places where there's just like collections of water bottles meant for the protesters and just emptying them out on the ground on very hot, sunny days. What's the point?
Which is illegal, by the way, in a sense of that's destruction of property.
That's destruction of property. What's the point in that, right? And also, a lot of these people that you mentioned, Bill, I don't know if you've seen some of the disturbing footage from as of late. A lot of these people are now no longer wearing identifications on their chest.
No,
you can't tell their name
or you know what? Another thing that I've seen is. They'll have their badges on, but then they put a band around their badges and they say that it's in solidarity for their the brothers that they have lost in the police force.
Interesting.
Because of COVID.
It's interesting.
Because of COVID. And they'll put it right over their identification number, which, like, I'm sorry, bro, but y'all don't give a fuck about those people that died. Like that's not how you fucking do that. No, you're trying to hide your fucking ID number.
Accountability.
So you can't be called out.
Yeah.
People will say, "What's your badge number? What's your badge number?" over and over. They don't give a fuck. They're not answering. It's become so bad that they are taking. They're breaking the law.
Yep.
That they're supposed to be upholding.
They're breaking the social contract yet again.
100%. And like, I'm sorry, dude, like no matter, it's your job. It is your job you signed up for. Being black isn't something that people sign up for. You don't sit there and like, and sign up, fill out a fucking contract and go to school to be black, you know? And
right.
Like, I'm sitting here thinking like, y'all signed up for some shit. I know that being a police officer can be dangerous. I get it. You know, like my grandpa who just passed away recently, like he was a cop. He was the chief of police here when I was really young, you know, and I know that it can be dangerous. I mean, statistically, it's not as dangerous as a lot of other jobs, but I understand that. But you signed up for this and you can't just break your fucking promises and your contract, your literal contract, and break the law just because you wanna. You know, if you sign up for this shit and someone asks you for your fucking badge number, you got to tell them your badge number. Like, I don't care who's telling you what. That is the law. And I think those people should be prosecuted.
And what's more terrifying, Bill, because what's more terrifying to me is that it is an invitation for people who aren't police officers, who have a lot of this weaponry and armor and other methods to join them, to exercise quote unquote vigilante justice, because you don't know who's a cop and who isn't in those situations. So what it is, it's an open race war is what I see it as. And
yes,
so how can you argue that we can't do more, that more can't be done or doesn't need to be done? You can't.
Yeah.
There's no argument.
I mean, speaking about what you were saying about anyone can join in. I mean, like, I don't know if you saw, but in DC, they had like actual militiamen in. I don't know if they were hired by the White House. They didn't identify themselves. And you could tell they were militiamen because they were all standing in a line and they all had different equipment, which means that it's not regulated, which means they're paid. Which, I mean, I don't think technically speaking, like, especially if they're covered by if they're paid by the government, I don't think that's illegal. But who is to stop someone like our old neighbor? Who is to stop? I'm not saying that he would do that specifically. I know him and I know that he wouldn't. But like, I know that there are people who are like him, who are gun nerds.
Yeah.
Who are also unhinged. Yeah. That's the difference thing. That's the thing that's a little bit, it's a dangerous thing because like I know so many gun nerds here who are good people. You know, I think that's just a hobby and they aren't even like in this situation, they would agree with us.
Yeah.
But I also think that the scary thing is like those aren't toys. They're being treated like toys, but they're not toys. And who is to stop someone who comes in full riot gear, which can be purchased legally pretty easily, especially in South Carolina? You know, who is to stop someone like that just walking in with those militiamen, walking in with the cops? You know, they're hiding their faces.
Yeah.
Like it's incredibly easy to do. And what's going to happen, I'm calling it right now, and it's very unfortunate, but I'm calling it right now. A lot of people are going to fucking die.
A lot.
There's going to be something that happens, and then it's going to be spun into this whole narrative of, oh, well, like if they weren't protesting, then it wouldn't have happened. If the riots didn't get that bad, it wouldn't have happened. And you know what it's going to be? It's just going to be a motherfucker with a gun.
Yep.
And he's just going to start shooting people.
It's going to get worse.
And no one's going to be able to stop him because he's going to be in full riot gear. And it's going to be a fucking mass shooting. And then everyone's going to say the same things that they've been saying for the past 30 years about mass shootings.
Well, yeah. And especially with your piece of shit president, sort of rewarding that kind of behavior, you know, vocalizing support and dog whistling in ways where you can clearly see that he's favoriting some type of behavior over other type of behavior. And I think what you made me realize with what you said is that not only must we understand what our objectives are throughout this whole ordeal, we also need to be very wary of their objective. The status quo wants to remain what it is. It is, the status quo. And so its goal is to wear you out, exhaust you, take as much of your beating as possible until you no longer have any stamina, emotionally, physically. So we need to be very careful of that and not allow that to happen, because we can do we can do the opposite. We can wear them out. If we're seeing so many people taken to arms, buying riot gear, and they're not actual officers, and blah, 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 to me, what it screams is sort of urgency, but also what's the word? Like they're running out of ideas, running out of options. It seems that they are scared. That's great. Mm-hmm. We need to keep at it and not allow them to exhaust us, because that's the exact fucking plan. You have to think of their objective. They want things to remain the way they are, and up until now, they've been winning every fucking battle. We need to make a difference this time around. It's going to be difficult, but it's beautiful to see that so much of the world has now risen in support of this movement. I think that's super significant. Seeing that people in the UK, and people in South Korea, people in Germany, people in New Zealand, people all over the world who are not affected sometimes by these issues, like people in South Korea, not directly affected by it, but we have to be emotionally connected with it to understand, no, it does affect us all. It has to affect us all. Otherwise, we've lost. It needs to affect us all if we all want to fucking live in a civil society. And seeing the amount of support is great.
To live in the society, to truly live in the society of the people who say, I don't see color and everyone is equal, it has to become to be the idealistic thing that people think exists now. It has to become a new norm where everyone bands together, and it's not just a few white people or a certain type of white person or a certain type of like Mexican, Asian, Latino. I think that it has to be a thing where everyone bands together and everyone fights together, and we have to write a new page in the history books that isn't just another one of these things that happens. And this goes way beyond just George Floyd. This goes beyond, I think a lot of people will say like, well, that guy's, one of the officers is being tried. And I'm like, they're like, oh, justice is served. And I'm like, okay, so what about the 500 other people that have died in the past few years? And
it's not justice, because it's just clearly there's the systemic issue there, right? If it keeps happening over and over and we're punishing these people, but that doesn't do anything, that means the system needs to change. It's plain and simple.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the thing is like he got charged with third degree, which is practically manslaughter. Okay. And people want to be like, oh, yeah, protesting doesn't do anything. Protesting. Okay, well, we got it moved to second degree, which me, personally, I think it should probably be first. I don't know how that works exactly.
The thing is,
I'm
my
not a fucking
understanding is
lawyer.
the first degree murder means premeditated murder. Like, I think they would have to argue that he, like, woke up that morning knowing he was going to kill George Floyd.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think that he did.
But even a second degree murder, you can be put in jail for a long time. You can make a lot of arguments for why that person cannot be let out. And you know what, to me, the fact that he's a police officer should be something that extends his serving time, because he broke the social contract. He's perpetuating something that what he did is everything that's wrong with the system. And he does a lot. And sure, there are police officers out there, I'm sure, that are good. But until we do something about how we lead our lives and how we hold people accountable like that, then it's fuck the police.
Exactly. I think that people get really confused, like when I say, or when everyone says ACAB, like all cops are bastards. I don't think that on a personal level, I don't know all these people. I can't generalize on a personal level, but the problem is that they're a part of a system, a cog in a machine that is much greater than them and much scarier than them. And just because, oh, I know a good cop, or like, oh, my uncle's a cop, or like I said, my grandfather was a cop. Now, do I think my grandfather was a good person on a personal level? Yes, I did. But I don't know really how he was as a cop. I imagine he was good, but I think that
you like to hope he was
even
good.
In that type of, I mean, yeah, of course you'd hope. I think he was good, but I mean, he's my grandpa. I don't fucking know.
Right.
I know him as my grandpa, but I would say that the problem is that you're a part of a system that's fucked up, and when your buddy gets in trouble for it, y'all aren't the ones fighting against that. It's like, just because I don't know if like reform is the right answer. I think defunding is probably the right answer, and then like trying to figure out, like, put everything back together. But it's like the whole system's so fucked up that it's like you have to break everything down and put it, like, build, like, start from scratch.
Yep.
At this point.
100%.
Because it's so ingrained. And like, I mean, I know that it's like people have always said cops are the biggest gang in America, and everyone always thinks like, oh yeah, that's what gang members say. Like, that's what criminals say. But it's like, no, when a cop does something bad, their friends are the first ones to say, oh, well, I know him. He must not have been bad because we get donuts together a lot, and he's nice to me. Again,
it's all about themselves at that point, right?
100%. And I think that's it. You know, I don't even know what else to say on the matter.
Yeah.
I just think that it's fucked up.
Start seeing outside yourself. Start seeing outside of yourself. That's, that's what it's all about. It can no longer be just about you and how comfortable you are and whatever your preconceived notions are about things that, yes, things are nuanced, but certain things are, without a shadow of a doubt, wrong. And the system is not right. And whatever's been happening has been a result of very little change over time. So something needs to happen. And Black Lives Matter.